And we are back here once again with another episode of the MSK Show, and this is going to be episode 51. And in this episode of the MSK Show, I am going to be having a conversation with content creator RJ William. This is going to be his first appearance on the show, which is crazy because we actually tried doing this last year, and it's just not happening this year at the exact same time that I messaged you last year. That's crazy. I was doing a whole nother podcast at that point, and then I ended up just completely messing it up. So I just basically do the Marvel Comics route. You got to just reboot. But if it's going bad, can't work, go back to number one. In reality, they don't need to do that. They just get a whole new creative team, but I digress. We'll get to that later. So how you doing, man? What's going on?
Great, man. Just getting ready to launch new campaign. So I got the trade card up, the Lena Riley trade card. That's with my friend Lisa Foiles. That's on Fund My Comic right now. Here's what the character looks like. This is her character, Lena Riley. She's a news reporter from the future. And on the other side, you get a picture of Lisa.
That's
herself.
A news reporter?
Yeah, this is our news reporters of the future right here.
So they're like hot and good looking, not Whoopi Goldberg on the.
No, the future is bright.
Okay, good.
It's more like Mexican TV.
Because if our future was Whoopi Goldberg level women being our news reporters, we might all just be trapped in hell. That actually might be purgatory right there.
Right. Well, then you go live on Mars or something. You know, like the news reporters on Earth look like that in this universe.
So we'll start here since this is your first appearance on the show. It's your first time. How was your life growing up?
That's a where to begin with young RJ. Well, so you're from California, right? Yeah. So am I. I was born in Long Beach. So
really, awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you know the California life if you've been here. Yeah. Long Beach is pretty expensive. Let's just say
it is. Yeah. I was born there, and then we moved to Anaheim. So I grew up mostly there. But yeah, always was into creative stuff. My first job was actually at Disney. I was a intern there. I was just like a college intern. So they have like that Disney college program. I don't know if you heard of that. So I was in that. I worked as a lifeguard at the hotels. I took classes, got some, college credit for it. And then I also had this is how my life took a weird turn. So I was working my first job. I had OCD. It was kind of like interfering with like life and school, as anxiety disorders often do. And being a lifeguard was kind of like exposure therapy. And then I just stopped having anxiety, stopped taking medication for it. And I decided I was going to go a different career route instead of going for Disney. And then I became a firefighter. So
became a firefighter.
Yeah.
So you were an intern lifeguard. You worked at Disney. You became a firefighter.
Yeah.
So were you like one of those hot, sexy firefighters that come and save the ladies out of burning buildings?
That's not for me to say.
So when you were a firefighter, are you still a firefighter now?
Yeah.
You're still a firefighter now. Okay. So you've ran into burning buildings. You've put out fires. What is the best thing about your job, you would say?
Oh, I would just say helping people. Part of the reason I got into it because my family, I've been on the receiving end of that, both on medical calls. My neighbor's house caught fire. I remember that when I was a kid, and being able to do that is like just help people is honestly the best part of it. It's a rewarding, fulfilling job. I think a lot of people don't get that. 15 years.
Wow, you've been doing it since what? 2008, 2007, 2010? Yeah. Crazy. So what is like the work schedule for firefighters? You work like what, 60 hours a week or something?
It depends on where you are. You could do like 24 hours on and then like it breaks. Most apartments where I live, like they do 48 hours on and 4 days off.
Okay. So is there any situations where in your career as a firefighter, you would have done better? Like you feel like you could have did a moment better in a bad situation or?
Oh yeah, plenty.
Yeah.
You always like rewind, and it's part of learning, it's part of how we'll get better. I think of so much of the job of a firefighter, it's like being on a sports team, like no one really does anything solo. And it's more like being on a football team. Everyone's got their little role to play.
Yeah.
We do debriefs all the time of like, how could this have gone better? Just part
of it. There's times where you've probably seen some really bad stuff. How do you like detox from that? How do you just basically like You just drink a lot. A lot of people just say they just drink a
No,
lot.
that's not the healthy way to do it.
That's probably not.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
That's like a temporary way of doing things. Because
No.
like I know law enforcement people because I think I've told you before. I was gonna be a cop at one point, and I even almost did it. I got way I freaked out. I was like, nope, can't do it. I couldn't do it. But I understand because I went through like there was a police support program. I remember knowing law enforcement. I remember like rules and a bunch of stuff. Like you'd be surprised. Like I'm gonna forget the guy that we had teach us. I think about you have to read the rights to the person you're arresting, and he was like, people call firefighters, they love them, but people call us, they hate us. And I was like, that is so true. Like
That is
firefighters
true.
are not hated at all. I don't really
Right.
like the way that police are hated is not the same way firefighters are hated. It's so drastically weird. Like because a policeman's going in and they're probably maybe saving a girl from getting raped or whatever, and then like apparently they're hated because they didn't get there in time. It's like what the fuck? Like
Well,
the
it's nuts.
perception of both of them are so weird. It's crazy.
Yeah. Every now and then firefighters will get bad press, but it's just not nearly as often as the cops do.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing, like, and it depends on the climate of the time. Like I remember in 2020, you probably remember this, like it was all over the news. This cop fired on this girl.
Black girl, I think, right?
Yeah, but they were both black, and one was going to stab the other one, and then he shot the one who was going to stab the other one, who had the knife, like clearly out over her head. So it was like,
yeah,
you can't win. You can't win sometimes.
Remember, mostly peaceful protest. Yeah, that's my city's burning to the ground. Mostly peaceful. Then most of those black people decided, hey, I'm gonna just go start killing other people. There was this guy I'll never remember. He was just giving out food to people who were just like having a bad time during COVID because their businesses may have been on pause or people weren't working enough, and he just got shot outside because he was trying to give people food. Like, man, that time period honestly felt like just like the Purge. If people ever watched the Purge movies, it literally felt like people were just purging outside, just getting rid of all their frustrations over the situation that happened with George Floyd. You're just like, wow, that's the one that broke everything. That one, not everything else that's always happened,
Well, you know what's interesting about that? There were riots going on all over the world at that time. And so like in the US and in Europe and English speaking parts of the world, like George Floyd was the big one. But in Latin America and everywhere else, there was riots for different reasons. I think part of it was just people were cooped up in 2020, and there was one thing or another that just set everybody off everywhere.
So you're someone that's been into comic books, haven't you?
I'm fairly new to comic books actually. And I'd say in the past year and a half, I've really been doing a deep dive in, and fortunately
it's a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's good to be connected to the right people though, like Mike Barry and Luke Stone, and I've got a good relationship with them. They're on my creative team for my comic book now, so it's awesome having them on board and learning a lot.
So growing up, you didn't read like Marvel and DC comics like a lot of people. You didn't have Image Comics growing up. You're like, I'm not a nerd enough for that.
No, I was into all that stuff. Like I have like a card, a birthday card from a friend's mom. It says, "Keep being Batman," because I was Batman. No, I was a huge nerd. I was into Star Wars. I mean, you could probably tell by my comic book when you see it. It's a sci-fi. A lot of fighter jets and military type stuff in space. So it's pretty obvious where I'm drawing my influence. That Battlestar Galactica, and then all the sci-fi novels I later learned about and love. But I was way into Batman. I was into all the superheroes that we all were growing up. I just didn't read a ton of comic books. I mostly got it from TV. Saturday morning cartoons and all that. Yeah. No, it wasn't until more recently. It's funny because I wrote. You were asking what my outlet was, how I cope with all the stress of the job, and a lot of it actually is creativity. And I still wanted to be creative in ways, and I remember about 10 years ago, like when the rise of all this discourse about how Hollywood was going woke and the critical drinker was getting real popular. And I remember he was doing these series like where he would fix a screenplay or a script or an episode.
Ooh,
and I kind of saw that, and I was like, challenge accepted. So then I started writing my own screenplay, and then my friend Lisa, who's on, Lisa Foyles is on Trading Card. She read it, and she's actually written some screenplays and novels too. Some have been into gone as far as pre-production. It's the industry, things fall through for all kinds of reasons. But I remember at the time she read my screenplay, she had a movie in pre-production in Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah. So like she knows how to write for sure. She's someone I trust on that. So she read it, she liked it, and she told me, this really kind of lends itself to animated form.
Mhm,
So then I started looking for animators, and that's
mhm.
when I started finding comic book artists. By now we're like around the time Elon Musk bought Twitter, and that's when I
Yeah.
started hopping on Twitter because Elon Musk bought it, and I'm like, this will be interesting,
Oh, if
And then,
you weren't on Twitter before he bought it, it was certainly just
well,
one of the
I was
that's
briefly.
bad.
It was a total shit show. It was awful.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I got back on when he bought it, and then that's when I got into like the Comicsgate scene and Comicsgate Iron Age, and just I started following and sort of talking to Luke Stone right before he launched Fund My Comic. Um, and that's just kind of when it all started, me kind of falling in with that crowd. And then that's when I decided I was going to write a screenplay, or not a screenplay, a script for a comic book. So it's not the
Mhm.
same as a screenplay. It's a whole different story, but it
Also,
has,
technically, it's a little bit more cheaper to get done, like
yeah,
getting
a
a
lot
movie
more.
done. Yeah, yeah. Like, feel factor, if you want to do a movie, even if you're doing a small budget
Hmm.
one, just getting all those people together and days filming, like writing a
Yeah.
novel or a comic book, it's going to be a lot more cheaper and a lot more efficient of
Yep.
getting something out.
Yeah. It's far more achievable. So if you're a writer who wants to get a story out, that's a good way to start, at least.
Mhm,
So yeah, I wrote a script for a comic book, which was way different than writing anything else. And
mhm.
then shortly after I finished that script, I learned that Mike Barron is like not that far from me. So I met up with him,
Yeah.
and he became the editor of the script. And I'll never forget the first thing he said after he read it. He said, "That was fun. It's no worse than the shit DC and Marvel are currently publishing." So best backhand compliment I've ever received. So yeah,
It's so
he was.
weird because like I've had Mike on. I had him
Uh-huh.
on an episode of the Iron Man podcast a long time ago. I had him on for a
Hmm.
conversational video because he couldn't do the whole hour time.
Hmm.
And that guy, his answers are like fucking hell. How people talking Europe? Like in Europe, European people. You've ever been around European people? Their answers are just like super direct. There's no
Hmm.
like actual added context to it. It's just like,
Hmm.
what's your favorite color? Red. Why do you
Yeah,
like
he
it?
is
I
super
just like
direct.
red. Yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's over time you've been able to see him like evolve the way that he talks. I can tell that
Hmm.
before this man was just giving straight answers and there's nothing else
Hmm.
there. Like why he came to the conclusions that he did. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, this man's way different than before.
He
Because he
does
was
have
talking
some
about what the
long.
writing in. Mhm.
If you got like some of his long, I don't know how I came across it, but it was on Twitter X now. But it was like an interview from the '80s. He was talking about the Punisher, and it was kind of a long format interview, and his answers were
Mhm.
definitely longer. And I thought like this is how he sounds when you sit down with him for coffee. But like
Yeah.
most conversations, he's super short, direct answers for sure.
Mhm. It's crazy because he's someone where I just couldn't wrap my head around the idea that he's not currently writing a
Mm.
comic book for Marvel or
Hmm.
DC for that matter, or even Image, honestly, or any like Boom or Dark Horse or IDW. It's
Hmm.
just a lot of people don't. Man, it's so weird. I think someone pointed it out, and it's the most obvious thing for people because you interact with people, right? You interact with a lot of just like we say casuals, right? A
Hmm.
lot of people that think like that don't understand there's a whole bunch of back end stuff and a whole lot of different ideas and reasons why people came to their conclusions. So people have always asked me like, why aren't there top talent on some of these books anymore? Well, it's a easy. There's a lot of it, but the main reason is basically there's no reason to create something for, let's say Marvel, for example, and then they in their own fucked up twisted brain think they created that and you should basically get on their knees and fucking suck them off in a massive way because you created something for them. You should be privileged to have created something for Marvel Comics. That's how
Hmm.
it kind of works for them, right? So
Hmm.
then people have to factor in when someone does their own thing, like Mike is a cat.
This is
Oh,
Gandalf. This
a
is
big old
Gandalf, the
cat,
White Wizard.
a big old pussy.
Yep.
Oh God,
He was meowing. I figured you want to come up here. Sorry, go ahead.
are you fine? Always, everyone's cats always just pass them by when they were doing this stuff. It's
Yeah.
okay. So the other thing is when you're independent like yourself,
Hmm.
well, at a place like Marvel and DC, stuff is passed on to multiple different people to get it done, to get it to the last person, to make sure the book's out on Comic Book Wednesday, obviously, or Thursday. Some books get released early Tuesday, right? So when you're an indie person, like you're gonna be yourself. Well, you have to do all that stuff yourself. So it's either basically do everything yourself while front loading most of the costs, hoping you're gonna put out a campaign, hoping it has interest and backers, and the money's gonna be there for everything. Because if you can't do certain jobs yourself, well, like with jobs, you probably have contractors where you hire them to come do work. I can't do electrical work on my job. No, we're hiring a contractor for that. Now, those people aren't cheap. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
So like, Marvel and DC, you create something good for them. They think it's theirs because they do all the production costs to get the book out to people. It's also technically in your shoes, you could make more money doing what you're doing than being over there. But the problem is making more money is clearly just dependent on people supporting and backing the book itself, unless you want to do, what's the rate? I think it's $28 a page. I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's $20 to $30 a page for like a 24-page, 28-page book. So if you guys can do the math there, if you round it up to like even the lowest numbers is like $1,200 some odd dollars, like $2K. Now, if you live in a place like New York, yeah, that's nothing.
No, that's not even poverty wages.
Yeah. So you would have to do something like Jonathan Hickman's recently doing, which is like you've been on 4 different books, unless you're doing like 5-6 different books like Joshua Williamson has been doing, Jason Aaron's been doing that. People see why people get like mingled around different companies because you can't just survive with doing one book. It's ridiculous. Yeah. You couldn't survive that even in my town, and I live in a basic ghetto motherfucker place in California, and even here is decently expensive to a point where you do that kind of shit. No, you're just not paying your bills on time, or you're living off of cat food, as Eric July said. Yeah. Yeah. But you brought up Critical Drinker. It's so weird that, I watch his content. I do enjoy it, but people just randomly, for whatever reason, just hate that guy. I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't know. I think people are getting tired of the negativity now. Like 10 years ago, I think it was like, people would watch him and be like, oh, he's making really good points. But, I was on board with that. And now, like, I think we're just kind of tired of it. It's kind of like an old conversation, beating a dead horse, And that, it's either that or it's the opposite, where it's like the woke people and they love Disney and, just.
Yeah. There's no balance to things. Like, you can't just be an individual person. Like, could I, as someone, just go out and say I like X new movie that has come out? Mm-hmm. Well, the problem with that now is like someone
people
like him.
Hate you.
Yeah, like Critical Drinker recently said he liked Venom 3. Venom 3 just came out, and I haven't talked to most people about the movie yet, but from the conversation online, it's pretty divisive. I would say it's not like overly positive or overly negative, but why is he not allowed to say he didn't think it was that bad? Is there a problem with that? It's like, you're not supposed to go into a movie and just automatically go, I don't like this, because that's called that's disingenuous. If people don't understand what I'm bringing up, if you were to go into a movie not liking it, well, I kind of already know what you're going to say before you even say anything,
That's exactly it. He has an audience that is mostly around like hating stuff. I think that's probably like why they would freak out if he just said, this is actually pretty good.
So you said you liked Star Wars growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure you've not enjoyed the way Star Wars is aged.
No,
aged pretty bad.
No, I'm an expanded universe guy and the original trilogy. I don't care that much for the prequels, and that seems like to get you in hot water now. It's like,
really?
I'm among a lot of the Star Wars people online, I feel like the prequels have been accepted, and like the cutoff is like anything that's Disney Star Wars, not George Lucas. But I'm kind of still of the opinion that the prequels weren't that good. The sequels just make them look good, but they're not good.
Yeah, the prequels are pretty just like jank. I still can't for the life of me understand why people like them outside of if you just watch them as a kid. Because for me, I was never into Star Wars growing up that much. I had other things that I cared for and looked more interesting to me. I thought Star Wars was just for pure nerds. So around like 2021, when we were all locked up, I just like, I'm gonna watch all these in order. First one to the newest one. I even rewatched Last Jedi because it was in order with what I was watching. And godly, I'm never doing that again. That was just hell. That's just asking to get a fucking rope in that shit. So I watched the prequel movies and I was like, why are these liked? I guess the third one is some sort of like so good it's bad, so bad it's good kind of one. That one I can understand. But the second one is just awful.
The second one's terrible. I think the actors aren't bad. George Lucas is just bad at directing actors, The dialogue is just It's
Yeah.
dull.
Like the first movie is fucking just carried by Liam Neeson because Ewan McGregor
Yeah.
is just not in his prime yet of acting. It's
Mhm.
so like I'll you know go for the whole like harassing actors, but I can see why people didn't like them. They're not good.
Right.
It's crazy how people will sit up here and start defend bad movies like that. I think with this, if those movies came out instead of the Disney Star Wars trilogy, would those movies be looked at as good? Probably not. Those they were gonna
No.
probably eviscerate even more now if you look at the way you talk about movies and the way
Oh, yeah.
discourse has changed. Yeah,
Think about how much I mean, people really hated Jar Jar in '99 when that movie came out.
I hated it just seeing
Think
that character on screen.
think of what would happen now.
Yeah, good gosh.
Yeah.
Well, your book is going to be called.
Call sign Orion.
Okay, so where did this all originate from in your head?
Well, that's a great question. So it started with kind of this trio. So the main character, Orion,
Mhm,
um, it, hmm, where to begin? I'll just start with the setting.
mhm,
Going back as far as where it all began, I guess is too complicated. But the setting basically is it's a dystopian. So like the basic inspiration from it, besides Star Wars, I'd say it would be Star Wars, a combination of Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica,
mhm,
Starship Troopers, and Brave New World.
mhm.
Um, so similar premise to Brave New World in the terms of the society. It takes place
Yeah.
in this universe 1,000 years in the future. Earth is the capital. They're kind of like an expansionist Soviet Union kind of empire.
Mhm.
And then there's independent planets, and they just had like a civil war. So there's like kind of like their own equivalent of a rebellion and all that. And it's just sort of in the aftermath of all that. And oh, there's my other cat. That's Merlin.
Another cat.
Yeah, I got Merlin and Gandalf, wizard cats. Uh,
Gosh, good lord.
I'm a cat lady.
Yeah, I mean, well, at least cats don't bark, so at least you're good on that. They just love to plant their entire bodies in different places.
They would talk to you if they could hear you. I just got the headphones on.
Oh my goodness, and that one does not have any. He's like, I need to be a part of this conversation. It's like, okay,
Yep.
buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the explorer for sure. But yeah, so it's in a dystopian type of future, like where Earth is basically like a communist government. And Orion is he's the like the head of like basically this Navy SEAL
Mhm,
team. They're called the Alphas. Um, in the first book, there's a hostage situation. One of the hostages is Orion's girlfriend, and they're basically just rescuing the hostages. So it's
mhm.
like it's a 52-page book, very action driven.
Yeah,
Um, there's a here I got a little printout here, give you an idea of what the vibe is. That's my mic.
all good.
This is like the glossy version. So here you could tell there's a if you could see past my light here, maybe it'd be better to turn off the light. You can see it's going to be a nice glossy page.
Oh,
Um,
looks
but
nice for a
there's a battle
spreadsheet.
in
Yeah,
space. It's in it's in a nebula, so it's kind of colorful, like
yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mhm.
There's gonna be lots of action. So like they board the ship. You know, there's a little like ship fighting there. So that's the vibe. It's gonna be a hostage situation, hostage rescue. Very action driven book. But yeah, that's the basic premise of it.
Okay. So you excited for launching the campaign after a lot of things you've seen happen when people launch campaigns? It's just crazy. I don't know if you've been seeing any of that drama that's been going on. It's just ridiculous. This is all over comic books. This is like
Yeah.
hobbies. No one's making unless you're like the top 5% of what we're talking about here. No one's making money of this. You're not going to quit your day job to do this, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of drama around. I think it's just the internet culture, you know. I
Yeah.
think part of it is like we got this cult of personality, and it determines who you follow, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and everyone wants to stick with their buddies, and someone says something online and someone doesn't like, oh, this movie was good, and then everyone hates them, you know. And it's just stupid drama. I
Yeah.
think the more you actually get involved in things, and the more you interact with people on like a real basis and not just comment threads, and it's easier to actually get along with people. It's amazing how that works.
God, man. I just love getting my interaction from just Twitter threads. Actually, just
Right.
amazing. I just read the whole thing. My brain is demented. I just read everything. I don't know if I'm reading a troll. My brain's just attached to it. Like I go on
Yeah.
Reddit. Reddit is just what, and that's only one of the places of all time. Just
hmm
complete utter nonsense going on there. I think I just laugh at it out loud so much. I'm like, wow, the world is not like that. Thank God, because we would be fucking miserable if the world was like
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
the other thing I'll ask you is, I forgot. I asked, are you married?
Yeah.
Okay. So how long have you been married for?
11 years now?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know how there's a lot of guys out there that don't want to get married, don't see the value in getting married, don't want to get a girl, just
Mhm.
want to do the whole Charlie Sheen 2.5 men route. Let's just say that. Uh you have any advice for any of the dating the guys that are indecisive about wanting to get married?
Yeah, it's so hard now because I got married right before Tinder took off, and I feel like that just changed everything. Dating was hard enough already, and
Yeah.
add in the fact that, like, before Tinder, it was starting to become more acceptable to meet somebody online,
Mhm.
Um, but, people just still mostly met in person, and then now I feel like just nobody meets in person.
Yeah. Or if they meet in person, man, you just get some of the most wildest people that'll just say the most outlandish shit ever. Like the fact
Yeah.
that that hot fucking tool girl took off is crazy. She's just
Yeah.
glorifying sucking dick. That's really
Yeah.
all it is. Man, if I could do that, I could be a rich millionaire right now doing that. It's insane.
Right.
So,
You know what I think part of that is, though? I think people just wanted something positive and funny. Like, I made a parody video about that on my channel. Uh, it's like I just made a little short about it, how she united the country.
she united. Oh God, hey man, she united the country better than Donald Trump did. There you go.
No
That's your
one could
angle.
unite the country that well. Like, if she existed, like, if you had the equivalent of her in the Reconstruction era, like, it would've gone so much smoother.
Yeah. Holy fucking hell, man. Because I know you were trying to put out content on Rumble, but
Mhm.
Rumble is just good lord, man. That is another place where it's just it's little to no growth there at all.
Yeah, Rumble's kinda rough.
Unless you straight up, went balls to the wall and say, I'm a Rumble all in person, like a lot of people
Mhm.
have. Then they're just in the good graces and they get all the promotion. But it's like
Mhm.
I just don't see the growth there anytime soon that's exponential.
Yeah, and it seems like every platform has its own crowd, and, like, Rumble is just politics with a strong right-wing bend, and if you're not in that, then you're just not gonna find much audience on Rumble, I feel like.
Yeah. So a few last things I'll ask you is you got anything planned coming up in 2024, going into 2025 that you want to let the audience know about?
Yeah, so, like, currently off on my comic, go check out the Lena Riley trading card. I'll show it to you one more time here. This is
Yeah.
Lena Riley. She's the news reporter. And then on the other side, you get there's a picture of the person she's based on, Lisa Foyles. She was on yeah, the '90s kids will recognize her for sure. She was on All That and Malcolm in the Middle. Um, one of the big Nickelodeon stars. Um, yeah, if you go on Fund My Comic, so you could get a signed card as well. She'll sign it for you. Or you could just get the standard card. You also have the option to pre-order the book. I did take down the highest tier temporarily, but I'll be bringing it back. The highest tier is a signed card and a pre-ordered book. Um, so if you want the highest tier, stick around for when that launches. But the best way to know when it launches is going to be on my Substack. My Substack we can put it in the comments here. It's that's my mailing list. So if you want all the best updates, get on the Substack. Also, for getting on there, replying to an email with your mailing address so I know where to send it, you'll get a free pop socket. This is the original version of Orion. I'm
Oh
sending
yeah.
that to you.
Yeah. Those are
So
a
you get
profile pic for a while.
yeah, get some free swag there. And pretty soon I'll be launching miniatures, 3D printed miniatures of the F-26 Aerostar. It's the fighter jet that the Alphas fly around in. So you get one of these if you're like one of the Warhammer like miniature
Yeah.
collectible people. That'll be a fun thing to have. And then if you want me to paint it, it's fun to paint, but I painted a few of them to look like the comic book. So yeah, I'm going to launch that probably in the next few weeks here. So keep an eye on Fund My Comic. Subscribe to my Substack if you want all the updates. And hopefully in February, we'll be launching a great book.
Yeah. So again, any shout outs and give to anyone in particular and anything else you want to say before we end the show?
I'm wearing Kevin here. This is from the Temperamental podcast. Check out Lisa Foyles on YouTube or Spotify, the Temperamental podcast. And would it be cool if I played a trailer of my book here?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I'm just going to go ahead and take over and share a video file here. I'm probably
Awesome.
quiet because I'm far from my mic. Here we go.
Right here. There we go. Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome book. I hope you're psyched.
Hell yeah. Can't wait to see it come out. And then definitely after it's out and you make $10,000 opening day, I'll make sure to ask you for my child support.
Right.
So yeah, thank you to RJ for coming on for the first time, and we'll see you guys later. Have a great night, everybody. See you guys later.
Thanks,